1. Thank you for your purchase of UGG registered trademark symbol Australia footwear. Your shoes are made from the finest materials available and will provide you with all the comfort and luxury you've come to expect from UGG registered trademark symbol Australia. These materials have been treated with the finest dyes. As with any deep, rich shade, some dye transfer may occur onto light clothing or furniture. UGG registered trademark symbol footwear will age over time, and proper care for your new purchase will ensure even wear. For complete care instructions, please visit www.uggaustralia.com. 2. Hippo stuck in pool. A young hippopotamus that was chased away from his herd at a South African game reserve has found a refreshing place to relax. He plunged into a pool at the Monate Conservation Lodge north of Johannesburg. The 8-feet-deep swimming pool is big enough for him to swim, but there are no steps and there's no way he can come out. A game capture team is now preparing to sedate the hippo and lift him out of the pool using a crane. Much of the water has already been drained to make the extraction easier, and a vet will be present. More dominant males forced the 4-year-old hippo from the herd, after his mother gave birth to a new baby recently. Staff have been feeding the hippo during his extended swim. They say he had been noticeably relaxed without any aggressive cousins to contend with. Because the hippo was chased away by his herd, he will be moved to another animal sanctuary. Guardian.co.uk, 2012. What's good for the cockerel? By this morning, William the cockerel's fate will be sealed. The bird, from I am in Derbyshire, has been served with an antisocial behaviour order, known as ASPO. Not for any violent assault or binge drinking, but after a complaint was made by villagers about his early morning crowing. His owners, Philip and Caroline Sutcliffe, were served with a noise abatement order by the local council, banning William from uttering cock-a-doodle-doo before the civilized time of 8 a.m. The poor Sutcliffes claim they have tried everything to keep their bird quiet, including keeping him in the dark and in a small space. Eviction seems the only option, unless there is a last-minute reprieve. Some may think Derbyshire Dales District Council has acted severely, but I'm all in favour. My early mornings and nights are regularly disturbed by workers relaying gas pipes in our street, or well-refreshed locals. Spontaneously auditioning for the X Factor outside my window. But most irritating of all are the neighborhood foxes, so I will be sending a request to my council to slap an ASPO on our local fantastic Mr. Fox and his noisy pals, citing Derbyshire v William as a test case. See you in court, Reynard. Daily Telegraph, 2014. Text 4. Fox trouble. Council has blanket response. By James Hall. A homeowner who asked his local council to help remove a nuisance fox was advised to use a novel method of pest control. 2. Carrie Tesler told Country Life that her 83-year-old father-in-law had been sunbathing in his back garden when he fell asleep. He was woken by a searing pain to see a mangy-looking fox eating his hand. When her father-in-law's neighbor was also troubled by the fox, The neighbor telephoned his local council and asked them to come and get rid of the animal. The neighbor was asked by a council officer whether he had the fox with him, according to Mrs. Tesla. When the neighbor said no, the council officer came with a surprising reply. "Next time you see this fox, throw a blanket over it, and then bring it to your nearest RSPCA," he said. An RSPCA spokesman said that it has no arrangements with councils to take in foxes that are irritating residents and advised homeowners not to follow the officer's advice. The spokesman said, "If the animal was injured, yes, we would get involved. We also have information on our website about how to deter foxes. But we wouldn't encourage people to chase around after them." Daily Telegraph, 2011. Text 5. It was curtains for computer control. Some 25 years ago I attended a computer club every week. It was interesting to learn from experts and very enjoyable discussing things with other members. One evening, someone raised the subject of home improvement and said he had installed a digital thermometer to show the temperature of the hot water in their tank, useful if someone fancied a hot bath. I said I had motorized the landing curtains as they were a bit awkward to move manually owing to their great length. All I had to do now was press a button. Everyone was impressed with my novel idea except Arthur, who was regarded as the smartest of us all. He said he'd thought of that a long time ago and now had his curtains under voice control. That silenced us all while the computer lecture recommenced. At the end, as we were all arranging to leave for the journey home, a friend of Arthur's came up to me and said he ought to correct something which might have been misunderstood about the curtains. Arthur hadn't motorized his curtains, his voice control was simpler. He just called out what he wanted doing, opening or closing, and his wife would do it. Mr. G. AD, 10b, PEMS. 12. Text 6. Home Alone Dogs. Based on an article by Sian Griffiths. 1. They are man's best friends, but the way we live our lives now may be leaving many dogs feeling depressed, new research suggests. According to a television documentary, an estimated 1 in 4 of Britain's 8 million dogs becomes deeply unhappy when left home alone. 2. Home Alone Dogs, a Channel 4 documentary due to be shown later this year, filmed dogs when their owners went out. For some dogs the consequences can be shocking, including pacing and spinning on the spot. Others were seen barking and howling for long periods, defecating and even self-harming, say the program makers. 3. Dr. Nicola Rooney has done research into canine conduct. She said the level of stress hormones in some dogs could be high even when the animals appeared content. There are dogs who are quiet, but when you look at their physiological stress they are affected as well, she said. For Dr. John Bradshaw, author of the best-selling book In Defense of Dogs, has been filmed for the documentary helping owners train their pets to overcome their anxiety. Dogs have a very powerful link to humans. You can train a dog to do all sorts of things and understand our gestures, and we expect to turn all that off by saying we're going out, relax, have a kip, chew a bone, we'll be back soon. They don't understand that, he said. 5. Bradshaw advises the owners of pets suffering from separation anxiety gradually to build up the length of time that they spend away from their dog. Dr. Rooney added that canine anxiety needed to be handled carefully. We don't want owners to say my dog is suffering but I'm working long hours and can't do anything about it, he explained. If we accept that, lots of dogs get dumped in rehoming centers. There are strategies that can be used. The Sunday Times, 2013. Text 7. Stretching a point. Adapted from a column by Ali Wilkes. One chatting to Anna, our postmistress, I remarked on how fit she was looking. It's Pilates, she said. It's marvelous. She told me about the energetic Louise who was running courses in a neighboring village, and that thanks to her, Anna now looked good and felt great. I immediately signed up for a course of 7 lessons. The sessions ran weekly, on Thursdays, and as the first one approached, my excitement grew. I dug out my tracksuit and some trainers, packed my towel and water bottle into a wicker basket, and set off. Almost at once my headlights lit up a mass of branches over the road. The magnificent horse-chestnut tree that guarded the entrance to the village had fallen down. By the time the road was passable again, I had missed my first Pilates class. The following Thursday, I was about to set off when the doorbell rang. It was Kay, my next-door neighbor, in panic mode. Frimble's gone. Frimble was her much-loved Coon pig. Looking for a black pig on a dark night in winter is not to be recommended. We discovered tree stumps, black plastic bags and a startled badger, but absolutely no pigs. I gave Kay a comforting mug of coffee and accompanied her home. Her phone was ringing. It was Ed, the owner of our local pub. I believe the black pig in our bar is yours. She's very popular, and the takings have been excellent, but I'd like to close up now, and she's not showing any signs of leaving. We raced to the pub to collect Frimble, who had a garland of hops around her neck, and whose breath smelt of beer. She had the air of a pig who'd had a great evening, but I had missed my second Pilates class. For I have no excuses for the third Thursday. The night outside was black and filled with sleet. The warmth of the sitting room with wood-burning stove and sleeping dogs was too beguiling. By the 4th Thursday I was totally ready for Pilates. 13 Teasel, my favorite sheep, chose that. Night to Lamb. I think she was happy I was there, and she certainly appreciated the post-lambing meal I prepared for her after she had produced her charming twins. 5 On the 5th Thursday, I waited for a diversion to present itself, but it didn't, so there was nothing else for it but to go to Pilates. And it was fabulous. The exercises were testing without being painful, and the whole experience was life-enhancing. I'm longing for next week's lesson, I told Louise on the way out. Ali, that was the last one. It was a course of 5. 5 lessons, not 7. It starts again in the summer, added Louise, encouragingly. I signed up, of course. But summer is the season of spontaneous barbecues with friends, of long horse rides in the golden evening light, of haymaking against the clock. Country Living, 2012. Text 8. Can a lone blogger bring down a business? Adapted from an article by Kevin Rawlinson, BBC News. 1. It would be a nightmare for any small business. One unhappy customer takes offense and their blog keeps popping up every time a potential purchaser searches for the store's name. In the past, newspaper editors acted as a check on printed criticism. Now it's down to unclear search engine rank calculations. In the online age, do bloggers have too much power? 2. One Northern Irish shoe shop certainly feels that this is the case. The ordeal for the shop, Robinson's Shoes, started when Jesper Ingevaldson wrote up his account of what he called the worst online shopping experience he had ever had 2 years ago. In his post on a forum, Mr. Ingevaldson complained that the shoes he had bought had started to break apart. He said the store was slow to deal with his complaint and even charged him the cost of returning them. Both parties agree that the issue was eventually resolved. The negative review, entitled Warning for Robinson's Shoes, 19, remains second in Google's results for searches of the shop's name. 3. It is harmful to our business, about 85% of which is done online, claims Martin McCown, the shop's digital marketing executive. He admits that he has little proof of actual lost sales. But, he adds, the store's data indicate that people have clicked on our site, opened a new tab, read something else, then closed our site down, which he says suggests the review is 20. For one online search expert acknowledges this is not an uncommon issue. One bad review shouldn't have to define your business, says Danny Sullivan, founder of the news site Search Engine Land. The same, he points out, is true of social media, where a single customer with a large following can harm a business's reputation. But people expect there to be negative things about businesses online. They would almost be more suspicious if there was not, he adds. 5. Going to court is not an option. British judges do not have the power to order bloggers to amend their writing simply because their criticism is too effective. What can be done is to resort to the recently established right to be forgotten, the ability to force Google and other search engines to delete a link from their results in Europe. But this can only be obtained if the blog names a specific individual who complains, not a company, and then only under certain conditions. In fact, it might be more effective to bypass the courts and appeal instead to the blogger's good nature. But even this tactic can throw up complications. 6. Martin McCown did eventually convince Mr. Ingevaldson of the store's case. I felt bad for them and didn't think that they needed to suffer for that bad treatment of one customer, he explains. But you can't take away old threads of yourself on that forum, and I've tried to contact the forum crew a couple of times to have them delete the blog without any luck. 7. There is little doubt that the immediate and global availability of a single negative review, perhaps written in haste, can seriously harm a business in the age of search engines. Martin McCown suggests such situations could be avoided if search engines were obliged to demote such links after 6 months. But the problem with that, says Search Engine Land's Mr. Sullivan, is that Google does not necessarily differentiate between each type of result. What would happen, he asks, If the search engine failed to distinguish between a single negative review and a major journalistic news story, would you apply a remedy that could potentially do harm? Asks Mr. Sullivan. BBC.com, 2014. Text 9. Anyone for crickets. Adapted from an article by Jerome Taylor. One in the kitchen of Archipelago Restaurant in London, Chef Daniel Creedon is putting the finishing touch to his most popular salad. At first glance the dish looks like any other salad. But look a little closer and you see the unmistakable shapes of light brown locusts and crickets. Too, in the West we are remarkably dismissive of insect cuisine, known to those who take the subject seriously as entomophagy. But for an estimated 2.5 billion of the world's population, insects are part of the daily diet. 3. The odds of us becoming a nation of insect eaters are slim. But beyond the hilarity and adventurism that comes from tucking into a locust and cricket salad is a more serious point being made by proponents of entomophagy. Insects are such an abundant food source that it seems crazy not to use them, remarks Mr. Creedon. We've just got to get over our fear of eating them. For the world is already struggling to feed itself, a crisis that shows no signs of abating unless population trends make a sudden U-turn over the next 5 decades. The oceans are being plundered at such a rate that even if we halve the number of fishing trawlers operating, fish stocks would still be unable to replenish themselves quickly enough to recover. Developing world nations such as India, China and Brazil, meanwhile, are cultivating their own rapidly expanding middle classes who are emulating the West in their demand for meat. To farm enough animals to match that demand, the world will have to hugely increase the amount of cereals it grows for feed, something which will inevitably hit poorer countries that are already struggling to feed themselves more than it will the world's rich. Throw in the specter of increased water scarcity caused by a rapidly warming globe and you have a full-blown global food crisis. 5. A growing body of food scientists, meanwhile, believe insects are a potential way out of this mess. Even though up to a third of the world still eats insects, they remain one of the world's largely untapped food sources. With an estimated 40 tons of insects for every human on the planet. So far, more than 1,400 insects have been documented as edible, but there are likely thousands more species out there yet to be sampled. Patrick Durst, a senior officer at the UN's Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, says, "The globe is only one generation away from a time when eating insects was widespread and socially acceptable." Insects can play a crucial role in food security. We have to be cautious about how great a role they can play, but we have to begin teaching people not to look down on eating insects. 6. Monica Ayeko, a consumer economist, has spent many years studying communities living around the Lake Victoria region. Many of the older locals there still gather termites and waterflies as part of their daily diet. "We have been eating insects for hundreds of years," says Mrs. Ayeko. "It's a common misperception that Africans only eat insects when they are starving. We don't eat them because we are starving, we eat them because they are healthy and nutritious." 7. For several reasons, entomophagy is 28, so if the price of meat keeps going up in our supermarkets, perhaps we should consider taking it up seriously. The Independent, 2010. Text 10. Parents can care too much. Adapted from an article by Jennifer Saleway. 1. Carrie and Tim Meek are lovely people. The couple, both teachers, take their duties as parents to Amy, 10, and Ella, 8, very seriously. Commendably, they want them to grow up as confident, outgoing young women. They can't bear the thought of their girls stuck in front of a twerking video or playing computer games. 2. To prevent this, the family drew up a list of 100 outdoor challenges. Top of the list, walk on a rope between 2 trees. Other must-dos include explore rock pools, make a rope swing, climb an abseil. All good fun, especially as little girls of that age are the best of companions. But much as I applaud Ma and Pa Meek, I suspect that if, as a child, I'd been presented with this exhausting, unending list of time-consuming activities, I would have begged to be adopted by less attentive parents. I wouldn't have wanted to be dragooned into doing a tag team cycle trial, 44 on the list, because I might have wanted to do something else, like talk rubbish to my friends. 3. The sad thing about modern childhood is that left to their own devices, children do indeed tend to boot up some piece of expensive electronic equipment in a darkened room. Previous generations, because there was nothing much to do at home, simply went outside and reappeared at tea time for refueling. Children didn't need an approved list of things to do. They had hideaways to build, bikes to ride, sticks to wave around pointlessly. And there were also plenty of unsporty kids like me who preferred to disappear into their private world with a book. The thought of having to enter a race, 56 on the list, would have filled me with horror. For previous generations didn't feel so obligated to play with their children and keep them entertained all the time, and children had no wish to have their parents butting in on their games. Mothers were generally too busy cooking and hoovering, poor things, though your father was good for some fun at the weekend, which usually involved being driven somewhere in the car and being allowed to change the gears up and down, my favorite dad-daughter activity. Parents knew their place. Nobody had mobile phones, so Mum wasn't forever texting you to ask where you were. Occasional boredom was expected to be as much a part of your childhood as it had been theirs. The challenge was to find ways of combating it that didn't get you into trouble. 5. The family did come together, of course, for meals round a table and for occasional outings. But there was no such thing as the verb to parent. Parents had nothing to prove. They were simply the grown-ups, with their own lives and interests, who kept you safe until you fled the nest. Likewise, parents were not on your case the whole time. Benign neglect it's called. The Meeks are a wonderful couple. I hope. 33. Daily Express, 2013. Text 11. Joe Bonamassa, the Grammy-nominated blues guitarist. 1. After 25 years in the music business, I don't want to be defined by some 3-minute song written by committee, tossed out and endorsed by music tastemakers who are failed musicians. I don't live and breathe what those numpties say, The kids can fight over the hit tunes. I'm just a blues guy. 2. It's sad when a 19-year-old musician hears nonsense from some major record label with an antiquated business model. It's not about grassroots flowering with them. They are more interested in what song you've got next through the pipe, and if it doesn't fit in the mold of the next Beyoncé, it's off to the next person. But if you record your tune on your iPhone, put it on social media, you own it, it's your idea and you've got your own business. That would be my message. 3. I used to be so angry. I'd struggled my whole career to get noticed and I was like, okay, I've got to play faster and louder than the rest of you and I'm going to make you notice me. I didn't care how many people I had to rub the wrong way. I've mellowed out now, I'm more zen and more thankful. 4. Some rock stars they dress up like they're going to play a gig when they're just going to the 7-Eleven store on a Tuesday night. In fact, you see it more often than not, rock stars acting like entitled idiots, though it'd be dangerous of me to name names. 5. The country and western band the Dixie Chicks gave the perfect example of what not to do. The entire US revolted against those three girls. The group faced a partial boycott in America after the lead singer insulted then-President George W. Bush on stage. That's how to take a billion-dollar music empire and throw it in the trash. 6. The other day I was reading a forum for guitar geeks on which a guy had written a whole essay about my lack of talent and that the only reason I was successful was that my father was a multimillionaire. Well, my father earned a modest living as a guitar dealer for 20 years. But 300 numpties couldn't agree with the guy fast enough, and this Pied Piper of stupidity got his followers. 5 years ago, as a hot-headed Italian, I would have posted a response. The Independent on Sunday, 2014. Text 12. Road rage. Cara Dolman hits out at drivers impatient to kill. In 15 years of cycling, I've had 3 collisions including one with a car trying to overtake me on a mini roundabout and another with a driver who had just turned left into a no-entry road. There is a hardcore of idiots among users of all forms of transport. Certain cyclists do themselves no favors by riding through red lights, checking their playlist while swearing at pedestrians who have right of way. Then there are suicidal pedestrians wandering aimlessly into your path. Can we all just stick to the rules and display basic good manners to others? J. Peacock. I live in Sydney and would no more ride a bike there than in London. But I have just spent 2 months in Paris where I cycled everywhere. Motorists there seem to have a relaxed attitude towards bikes, with no horn tooting even when I was riding down a narrow street with a row of cars behind. I am about to go to my native Denmark, where you can cycle to your heart's content. There are deep cultural reasons for these differing attitudes. Cater Fraser. Evening Standard, 2013. Text 13. Trooping the Colour, the Queen's Birthday Parade. The ceremony to celebrate the sovereign's official birthday is probably the most spectacular of London's annual traditions. Carried out by fully operational troops from the Household Division, Foot Guards and Household Cavalry, Trooping the colour is a military tradition that dates back to the early 18th century. Applications for tickets for the seated stands take place in January and February. Applications should be made to the Brigade Major, Headquarters Household Division, Horse Guards, Whitehall, London SW1A2AX, stating how many tickets are required, max 3 per application, and including a stamped and addressed envelope. The ballot takes place in early March. Successful applicants will be notified and payment will then be requested. Spectators can also just come and watch along the route down the mall and at the end of Green Park, but arrive early if you want to be far enough forward to get a decent view. A flypast takes place at 1 p.m. Timeout.com, 2013. Text 14. Follow Your Nose. By Sarah Knapton. Humans have a far greater sense of smell than previously thought, but daily showers, which mask bad odors, have reduced our ability to detect scents, scientists believe. Experts believe our sense of smell is much closer to that of animals than we imagined, but we no longer pay attention because our smells are often hidden, meaning that important sensory information is lost. Our sense of smell evolved over millions of years, and our human ancestors would have used it as a tool to spot disease, to avoid rotten meat and poisonous plants, and to sniff out food. However, as we assumed an upright posture, this lifted our noses far from the ground where most smells originate, diluting scent molecules in the air. Researchers said this could explain why people believe that smell is unimportant, compared to hearing and vision. 39. Many studies have shown that pheromones emitted from sweat glands play an important role in physical attraction. Dr. Craig Roberts, a senior lecturer in psychology at the University of Stirling, said, "We all use smell more than we realize, sometimes in ways we don't think much about, such as when choosing partners." Daily Telegraph, 2014. Text 15. Independence Day. In Lebanon, they will go ahead with plans to issue banknotes marking 70 years since its independence. 40. A spelling mistake on the commemorative currency. The French-language face of the special issue £50,000 note, which is worth about €24, spells independence as it is written in English, rather than the French independence. The bank said it regretted the mistake, which it blamed on the printing company. Holland Herald, 2014. Text 16. Farmers and thieves. When suspected shoplifters raided a village shop, locals swung into action. 2 customers who were in the store in Henlon, near Denby, when a man apparently stole bottles of vodka while 3 people were outside, gave chase. After a 2-mile flight through fields in North Wales, farmers rounded up 4 men using quad bikes. Vanessa Griffiths, the shop owner, said, "In a community like this we look after each other." No one has yet been charged, and all 4 men who were arrested have been bailed pending further inquiries. Daily Telegraph, 2012.